Life in Utopia. Our small town could be considered a utopia. The location is great, right next to the beach. There's no poverty, no racism, and crime is pretty much non existent, with the exception of some robberies that have happened. Finding a job is really easy, as long as you're willing to work hard and acquire some skills to get a promotion. I became my department's head in the local bank in only a year. Services like the police, fire department, and hospitals are excellent, but taxes aren't very high. People are generally friendly and trustworthy. Nobody is religious, so it's pretty easy to form romantic relationships, and everyone was very welcoming when we first moved here. People are strange, though. Sometimes their actions will be completely out of the blue. You might get verbally abused by a good friend or get hit on by a happily married old lady. Though I kinda got used to that stuff. Lately, though, some even weirder shit has happened. A woman who was an experienced cook died in a house fire after leaving the hobs on for hours. The weirdest thing was that she apparently had thrown away her fire alarm. I swear she had one. I saw it when I visited her about a month ago. Meanwhile, some people have drowned in their pools. Young, healthy, sober people drowning in their pools. My family just started acting strangely. My wife quit her job as a police officer and now just paints all day long. I bet her quitting has something to do with all the weird shit that's been happening, but she hasn't told me anything. In fact, she hasn't talked to me at all in the past 3 days. Today has been the scariest day of my life. I woke up really early and had zero control of my actions. I was completely trapped inside my body. I didn't go to work and instead spent 4 hours on the treadmill, even though I was really hungry and tired. I only regained my body's control a few minutes ago, and after talking to my wife after days, I was unable to describe my experience. She was also unfazed by my abnormal behavior this morning. The creepiest thing, though, that I just could not explain was that fucking green diamond hovering over my head. Open up. It's the police. This happened to me a couple years ago when I was backpacking in Australia. I traveled around driving a van like many backpackers there do, as it saves a lot of money with accommodation. I usually slept in rest areas, gas stations, or wherever I could park. This one night, I'd been driving for a few hours and started to feel sleepy. I decided to stop at the next rest area in the middle of nowhere. Parking in that location during the daytime could be a great idea, but at night, it seemed like a horror movie location. There were no other cars parked there. I know I should park where there were more people around, but I was really drowsy at the time, and there were no lights whatsoever. I turned off the engine and closed the curtains of the van. It was not long before dawn that I heard some heavy knocking on the side of the van. Open up! It's the police! Nothing wakes you up faster than that. My heart was racing. I was just adjusting to the adrenaline rush in my system when they repeated the heavy knocking, saying it was the police. I first thought, as I had parked somewhere I shouldn't. But then again, it was the middle of nowhere and it was a rest area. Before opening up, my mind was telling me that the situation was weird as fuck. So I decided to go slowly to one of the windows and look through the gap in one of the curtains. I could clearly see the shape, or shadow, of a guy standing beside the van. His car wasn't too far, but it didn't have any flashing lights on. This guy was definitely not a cop. Bringing up the courage I had left, I shouted, "Get the fuck away. I have a gun and I'm calling the cops on the radio." I didn't have a radio or a gun, but that seemed to faze him. I saw him getting back in his car, and to add to the creepiness, someone came out of the bushes and also got in the car. They left, and a few minutes after that, I turned on my van and drove in the opposite direction that they went. Safe to say that I never slept in another rest area that didn't have at least a couple other cars parked. I don't know what those people wanted, but with Australia's history of backpackers, serial killers, I'm very happy to be here today. I filled a survey at an ATM. As a broke college student, I often work shifts until late at night. After finishing my shifts, I sometimes stop by an ATM to pick up cash on my way home. With no lines, it was much quicker to use during those late hours than during the daytime. A few weeks ago, my routine was the same as always. I stopped by the ATM, checked my balance, and silently bemoaned the miserable state of my bank account.
How much would you like to withdraw?
Seeing the message on the luminescent blue screen, I reluctantly keyed in $100.
Processing complete. Before withdrawal, would you like to complete a survey for a reward?
That was odd. I had never heard of surveys being conducted over ATMs, but thought I just made a new discovery. My finger hovered over to the button adjacent to the no below the question on the screen, before eventually pressing the button adjacent to yes. I was broke. A few minutes in exchange for a small reward couldn't hurt.
Have you had odd or strange dreams recently?
Weird. I expected it to ask basic information first, like my age or gender. Maybe the bank wanted to do a survey on the general population, but to ask about dreams was just odd. After some thought, I pressed the no button. After the loading bar showed for a moment, the next question flashed across the luminescent screen.
Would you like to?
What? Feeling goosebumps rise in my arms, I was beginning to feel creeped out. Nonetheless, I pressed the no button again. Within an instant, bold red words flashed across the screen, creating a stark contrast against the blue background.
Do not look behind you until the survey is complete.
What the hell? I reeled back in slightly in shock. Almost immediately, I heard the rustling of clothes and heavy footsteps behind me. It was the first time someone else had come to use the ATM at the same time I did. I wanted to look behind me, but with the ominous message on the ATM screen, I was too afraid to. I thought that I was being irrational, but decided to follow the instructions anyway.
Are you dreaming now?
I could see a shadow of someone behind me on the ground. I scoffed nervously upon reading the question and pressed the no button.
Are you sure?
When the message showed up, I felt the presence behind me move forward. I could feel him breathing down the back of my neck. I moved closer to the ATM. I could feel him moving closer too. Excuse me, can you step back a bit? I asked meekly, still not turning to look behind me. No reply. I could still feel the person's warm breath on my neck, now feeling moist from the vapor. I held my breath and pressed the yes button.
Are you really sure?
The capitalized letters almost seemed to shake as they showed up on the screen. I could smell the person's breath now. It was indescribably putrid. So much so that I gagged involuntarily. I was sweating all over. My heart was pounding at my chest. It was tightening. Every inch of my body was screaming at me to look behind, just turn around and cause a scene by letting my fight or flight response activate. But the previous message held me back.
Do not look behind you until the survey is complete.
I repeated it like a mantra in my head, restraining myself from looking behind me. I don't know how long it took for me to finally press the yes button with my trembling hands. It could have just been a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity.
Thank you for completing the survey.
I clutched at my chest as I watched my $100 bill come out of the ATM. Taking the bill, I slowly turned to look behind me. There was no one there. I could swear there was someone, but it was as if they had disappeared into thin air. The nearby streets were empty, and I never heard the sound of someone walking away. I stuffed the money into my bag, fleeing as quickly as I could. I didn't want to stay there any longer. The way back home was a blur, and I only remember collapsing on my bed, exhausted. The next day, I asked my friends and colleagues if they had any similar experiences, but was only met with puzzled looks. Searching online yielded no results either. I initially chalked up my experience to a dream, ironically enough. Either that or I was having hallucinations due to a lack of sleep. Whatever it was, I was still irrationally fearful of the idea of using an ATM. When I ran out of cash, I visited the bank and spoke to an actual bank teller to withdraw money from now on. When she informed me of my balance, I was shocked to find out that there was an additional $10,000 added to my previous balance. I told her that there must have been some kind of mistake with the amount, and also just took the opportunity to ask if the bank was running any sort of ATM surveys in the area. Again, I was met with a puzzled look. She told me that they didn't have ATM surveys and that there weren't any records of a transfer of $10,000 into my bank account recently. In fact, records show that it was the first deposit into my account after it was created. I left the bank dumbfounded. The $10,000 is still in my bank account, and I don't know what to do with it. There's one more thing I didn't mention. What haunts me the most about my experience there was A sentence that flashed across the ATM screen briefly after the thank you message.
We look forward to your continued participation.
Human bingo. I sit there, fidgeting. Looking around, I am dismayed by the lack of familiar faces. The guy sitting next to me, he looks like a frat boy freshman. He's doing the same thing and fidgeting about. He seems more excited than I was. Welcome, the woman sings as she enters the room. Everyone's eyes follow as she steps into the center of our circle. I'm so happy that you guys signed up for this, she smiles. I roll my eyes. I told Joey I was too old for these things, but he wouldn't let up, and he said this was a good opportunity for me, and I was stupid enough to believe him. Frat boy freshman over here, he looks like he's having a good time. Now, since you guys have just met, we thought of a fun way for you all to get to know each other. People with name tags come in and start distributing pieces of paper. A girl hands one over to me in bold letters, reading, Bingo. That's right, the woman squeals. You guys are going to be playing human bingo. She claps. I hear grunts. The rules are simple. Written inside the boxes are descriptions of specific people. All you have to do is find out who it is and let him sign his name under his description. They start distributing the pencils. Do we really have to do this? The elderly man across from my chair asks. Ah, brother from another mother. Well, the first one to fill out all the boxes wins. What's the prize? Frat boy freshman asks. I knew it. Of course, he's the only one who's interested in this. Your freedom. It took about a second before it clicked, and when it did, I quickly turned my eyes back to the paper. I guess the others did the same, as everyone had become silent at that point. Good luck! The woman laughs as she closes the door behind me. My eyes dash from word to word, my heart pounding inside my chest. I think I might just have a heart attack. Mafia Lord. I look up and scan the room. I bet it's the guy with the thick eyebrows. I know his type. Drug syndicate. It's the Mexican guy. He has gold teeth, for God's sake. Bank thief. The guy in the corner. Okay. I got this. Psycho killer. Frat boy freshman. I mean, who else? Human trafficker. Probably the old guy from across from me. Arsonist. Maybe this is the frat boy freshman. College kids like to burn stuff, right? But so, who's the psycho killer? The old dude? Cannibal. Christ. How the fuck am I supposed to know this? I can feel beads of sweat forming as I hear chairs being pushed back. People have started standing up and approaching one another. Some are wary, some are proud, most are pissed off, but all of them are pointing at a particular box. That box right there, dead in the center. My description, my box, my coffin, snitch. Nine, 8, 45. A blinding light and some unseen force knocking me backward is all I remembered about my death. It was as quick as I expected, but nowhere nearly as painless as I would have liked. Speaking of pain, why do I still feel it? And why did I keep my injuries in death? My body is burned and tender, and what little remains of my clothes are fused to my flesh. My right eye is running down my face like a tear. Every movement I make is excruciating. It's tempting to think that I'm still alive, but I know hell when I see it. Dozens, maybe even hundreds of fellow departed souls meander about the burning wasteland I woke up in, all as naked and confused as I am. Some are blind. Some are so badly burned that they resemble charcoal. Their skin hangs off their bones like slices of meat, and their moans are carried on the fierce wind that cuts through the wasteland. They are of all ages, adult, elderly, even infants. Below me, a river is clogged with motionless bodies. Are one of those bodies mine? If we are in hell, why are there corpses? I feel alive, just as alive as I did when I got up on the day it happened, the 9th of August, 1945. I am in hell, but I feel alive. I never liked Emily. I never liked Emily. Not that she ever actually did anything to me. She just had that sly, knowing look in her eyes all the time. That I know something nasty about you grin. Like she'd listen in on all your secrets, but tell everybody, if she could. She had a way of turning up when you weren't expecting her to. Uninvited, but there she'd be, grinning, knowing that she'd surprise you, and even though you hadn't really wanted her around, your mom would just sigh and say, well, she's like family. I can't think of why you don't like her, and she's never done anything to you, has she? Of course I'm not going to send her away. Don't be silly. So I decided to make Emily go away for good. I went with her to the park, and while crossing the bridge over the little lake, I pushed Emily through the fancy railing and into the cold water. It was harder than I thought, but I got her through, and watched as she sunk under the surface. Relieved, I skipped back home. Emily free forever. My mother didn't even ask me why she wasn't with me, but that's probably because when I got up to my room, there was Emily, sitting on my bed, grinning that sly, I know a secret grin, still damp from the lake. God help me. I'm going to scream. Who knew dolls could swim? Proven innocent. The cops had everything about Joey's kidnapping wrong. Their prime suspect was Scooter the Clown, a well-known children's entertainer in our town. He performed at parties, like Joey's, all the time. At the precinct, I was a significant ant falling for the attention of Titans. Finally, a cop turns to me and says, Are you lost, little boy? On cue, my silence held no longer. The balloons with the ransom note, they were filled with helium, right? I asked. Scooter never had a helium tank there that day. He just blew everything up by hand. Check his truck and you'll see I'm telling the truth. The officer smiled and left, only to return 10 minutes later, ghost-stricken. He got down on his knees and rattled. I don't know how we missed that kid, but you just did that clown a service. I beamed as I walked home, knowing my hero was safe, not ever dreaming that he would thank me in person. When I saw him a block from my home, my jaw dropped. Someone's been a good little detective. I have a special badge for you, kid, Scooter said. He reached into his pocket, grabbed a balloon in the shape of a badge, and then blew it up in front of me. As soon as I held its light, floating form, my heart froze. Without another word, he turned around and started dancing down the street, pausing only occasionally to put a balloon to his lips, tie it, and then release it into the air. As each one drifted into the sky, I realized just how wrong all of us were about Scooter the Clown. The Smiling Man. About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the US. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend the time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommate that even the drug dealers in the city were polite, but all that changed in just a few minutes one evening. It was a Wednesday night, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police patrol park, quite a few ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment. That's when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me by. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still, until I could make out his face. His eyes were open wide and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off him to cross the empty street, and as I reached the other side, I glanced back, then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he'd been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and his shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time, staring at him. And then he started moving toward me again. He took giant, exaggerated, tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone. Except he was moving very, very quickly. I like to say that at this point I ran away or pulled out my pepper spray or my cell phone or anything at all, but I didn't. I couldn't. I just stood there, completely frozen as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling his smile, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What the fuck do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whimper. What the fuck? What do you want? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't seem to react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then, after what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started dance walking away. Just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go until he was far enough away, almost to just be out of sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off the side road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile, but he was never there. I continued to live in that city for 6 months after that night, and I never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that's a very, very scary thing to see. The birth. It had been years since the last natural birth was recorded. Humanity is dying out. Without children to replace the old, mankind is expecting extinction. Our scientists tried everything: cloning, bionic replacement to delay the inevitable, but they were all just temporary measures. There were no new humans being made. Mankind was doomed. Then, that fateful day came. The first pregnant woman in decades. The operation was broadcasted around the world. People were holding their breath. It was the one moment when all of humanity shared the same feeling. The entire world cheered when they saw the baby, cradled by the doctors. They eagerly awaited to hear his first cries. But he didn't make a sound. The whole world went silent with him. The job.
So, what shall we cut off next? An ear? Your big toe? Maybe I will just slice out your tongue so I don't have to listen to your whiny sniveling anymore.
I test the restraints again as the maniac walks across the room to pick out yet another tool from his surgical kit. But there's no way I can escape. He hums to himself as he lightly runs his fingers along each torture device, taking his time to make his selection.
Ah, the scalpel. Oh, we can have some fun with this.
He wraps his hand around my throat. It feels like he's crushing my trachea. Every muscle in my body tenses as he sticks the instrument into my eye. The pain is incredible. He laughs out loud to himself like some kind of supervillain as he twists and turns the pointed object and scrambles the inside of my socket. After what feels like minutes, he pulls the thing from my face, and a mangled cluster of what used to be an eyeball dangles down my cheek. He laughs again.
I hope you enjoyed that, friend, because we are going to be at it all night.
All night, I think to myself. He better. It is what I paid him for, after all.